All right, it is now 12:55 or 1:55, depending on where you're at. So next up, we do have Steve Wagner with PenChecks Trust. And just a little bit about Steve. Steve, as a VP of Institutional Sales, Steve works to increase PenChecks Trust presence in the institutional space by developing strategic relationships with financial institutions such as banks, trust companies, insurance companies, and other retirement platform providers. I would like to extend a great big thank you for Steve for being here, and the floor is now yours.
Hey, Justin, thank you so much for that introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. Justin, just real quick, can you hear me okay? Can you see my screen up there?
Yes, sir. See your screen and you sound great.
All right, perfect. I appreciate that. So hello again, everyone. My name is Steve Wagner. I handle institutional sales and strategic partnerships for PenChecks Trust Company, and appreciate everyone's time today, and very, very happy to be here supporting our friends and partners at Definiti, and was really just looking to spend in my limited time with you all today, just talking to you a little bit about who PenChecks is, real high overview of high level overview of what we do, talk a little bit about missing participants. I mean, I know it doesn't sound like a real, crazy topic, but, certainly a lot that you can discuss about missing participants. It's getting a lot of exposure and, a lot of people talking about it today. So just wanted to get you, thinking about a couple of things today, different ways that you might be able to go out and learn a little bit more about dealing with missing participants. And then finally, just talk a little bit about some of the ways that we partner with Definiti on handling missing participants. So with that, I'm just going to kind of go through some of my slides with you all today. So, I mean, primarily PenChecks has been around for almost 30 years now, headquartered out in San Diego, California. We are primarily known as the largest independent processor of distributions within the retirement services industry. We work with over 1,200 record keepers and retirement providers, directly with over 65,000 plan sponsors. So we work with a very, very broad range of retirement providers and companies out there, and that utilize at least one of our services. I know as a company that's been around for almost 30 years now, we really have shifted our focus much more over the past 5 or 6 years as we've continued to grow and evolve as a company with newer products and services. And although things like distributions is how PenChecks got its start, we really have tried to get away from being known as just a distribution processing company, which is something that we do every day. We're very good at it. We process hundreds of thousands of distributions on an annual basis. I believe last year we processed over $10 billion in distributions, to really establishing ourselves as a fintech service provider within the financial services industry. So with that, talking about the distribution space, again, that's an area where PenChecks started almost 30 years ago. Several different variations of our distribution processing we do, but primarily known as a paying agent, where we are working with providers to take that participant information along with their assets and pay them out their distribution, whether it's a check, wire, ACH. We can assist also with the rollover. We handle all the federal and state tax calculations and remittance. Those are, as you're probably aware, ever changing on an annual basis. And then also we handle the 1099 at the end of the year. A lot of different moving pieces within the processing of the distributions for participants. We also do a lot within the missing participant IRA space. In fact, PenChecks developed the very first missing participant program within the industry. So I'll spend a little bit more time talking about that as I go through my slides. And then finally, we also do a lot within the trust resolution space, which entails our uncashed checks and abandoned plans as well. And as you can imagine, we deal with missing participants a lot in that space too, where checks have gone uncashed, or we're dealing with missing trustees of a plan, and we're trying to go out and locate that trustee to get the plan formally closed down and pay out participants their assets. So really, at the end of the day, the backbone of a lot of what PenChecks does is dealing with missing participants. From a missing participant standpoint, and I'm just going to try to share this one more time. There we go. So just to kind of talk a little bit about missing participants, like I said a few minutes ago, the missing participant space, I mean, it is getting a lot of attention these days. A lot of people are talking about it. I'm here at a conference in Florida this week, and it's come up in several sessions, and getting a lot of exposure out there. So when we're dealing with missing participants, it's something that you could really spend a lot of time talking about in different ways, different things that you should be doing with managing this process. But just to give you an idea, I mean, missing participants, the way I really talk about it a lot is twofold. A missing participant can be somebody that, you have bad address information, they're not responding to your attempts to reach out to them. But a lot of times you're also dealing with non-responsive participants. And I always use myself as an example for this, because prior to joining PenChecks 7 years ago, in my prior life, I fortunately did contribute to my retirement plan and have assets in there. And I've just left that plan as is. I mean, I know where the money is. I have somewhat of an understanding with investments and retirement. So my account's there. I watch it once in a while. But the provider that plan is with, I get emails and mail all the time from them. I just choose not to respond. So a lot of times when PenChecks does a search for somebody, they may say, Steve, we gave you 10 participants and you provided us 9 of the same addresses. Well, their address may not have changed. It's just that they've chose, not to respond, to your attempts to reach out to them, for several different reasons. So I really delineate between missing participants versus non-responsive participants. Under DOL guidance, fiduciaries must make reasonable efforts to locate missing participants and beneficiaries. It's part of their duties of prudence and loyalty. And really, until recently, the DOL has had very limited guidance on how you should meet these requirements and obligations. So how can missing participants affect your plan? These are just some of the ways that they might, be able to cause issues within your plans, from inability to pay the plan benefits, having issues around RMDs as participants reach those RMD ages. You've got to go out and process those distributions for the participants, and basically mail out checks to participants that are missing and non-responsive to your attempts to reach out to them, which also requires the tax remittance and calculations, the 1099. Okay. You're also with dealing with missing participants failing to meet disclosure requirements around fee disclosure, for example. Also, the inability to deliver participant communications, such as statements or summary annual reports. Uncashed checks, I've mentioned a few times already. This is another area that creates a whole nother problem, especially with plans that have cash out provisions for terminated employees with balances below $1,000. Even though these participants are missing and unresponsive, the checks are still sent out to them participants, and they are just floating around out there. They go unnegotiated, and it creates a whole nother problem that people have to deal with. And it also has the potential to complicate plan terminations if a company is acquired or, they are trying to close down the plan. DOL has, provided some guidance about, quote unquote, reasonable steps that should be taken for dealing with missing participants, such as, performing annual searches, using different search methods, some of the other things out there, doing, quote unquote, whatever it takes to locate missing participants. These things are, time consuming. There's a lot of resources involved with doing this. So, but, like I said, until now, there's been very limited guidance from the DOL about the steps that should be taken with dealing with missing participants. Previously, the DOL had provided a lot of background about what you should do for a plan that is going through a termination through some of their field assistant bulletins, but there was, like I said, lack of guidance for dealing with the, those non-terminating plans. So really those plans that are still in existence and going forward, what are some reasonable things that you should be doing to deal with these participants? So the great news is last year, the DOL did issue some 3 separate guidances around this topic. And basically, this is an outline of what they provided out there. And you can, easily go out and search for all of these things if you want to kind of, you're looking for some things to read about this, but they put out some information about best practices for retirement plans and dealing with missing participants. This is one that I talk a lot about lately because they specifically mentioned PenChecks in this field assistant bulletin that they put out there with the best practices. Another one that they put out there was Compliance Assistant Release 2021-1, and then Field Assistant Bulletin 2021-1. So let's just spend a couple minutes talking about kind of best practices in dealing with these, lost participants out there. And I'm just going to kind of go through some of these slides quickly, just read through a few of them. But there's really 4 categories that were put out there, for best practices. The first was maintaining accurate census info. The second was implementing effective communication strategies. Thirdly, you had documenting procedures and actions. And then finally, missing participant searches. So just to kind of talk about, some bullet points in dealing with each of these, in dealing with maintaining accurate census information. This is just a list of some of the things that you should be thinking about. Trying to contact participants, whether they're current participants or retired participants, or their beneficiaries, on a periodic basis to make sure that you have their most up-to-date contact information. You can also try to include contact information change requests in any regular plan communication, such as fee disclosure notices or statements, really giving those participants the ability to provide change of address information or email information so that, you do have their most up-to-date info. Always try to flag undeliverable mail or email that is sent to participants. This creates a whole nother problem out there where, we talk to people all the time where they're sitting on piles of return mail. And the issue they have is they continue to send out that mail, regularly to those participants, just really compounding that problem that they're creating. Also, within the online platforms out there, give participants, when they log into the site, the ability to update their information when they're going out and viewing their balances and, seeing their statements online. A couple other things to think about when maintaining accurate census information, the online access, requests for updates, regular audits, and include participant searches, which is really the area where PenChecks can come in and assist with trying to locate participants. The next area is implementing effective communication strategies. So using plain language and offering non-English assistance. PenChecks does have, the ability to provide, Spanish speaking, some other, ways we can communicate with the participants. Clearly label communication so participants know what it's all about. A lot of times just a blank envelope goes out. People think, it's junk mail, maybe including on that envelope, important plan information. So really giving the participants, an opportunity to see what it is and, get them engaged with that, communication. Encouraging contact through websites and phone numbers, using the original plan name on a correspondence as well is very helpful, especially if the plan, has been, it's a company that has been acquired and has transitioned over to a new plan. Participant searches, these here are just some different things that you can think about when dealing with doing the participant search, from checking related, plan and employer records to trying to do beneficiary searches. There's a lot of online searches out there that can be done using public databases. There's a national OBIT checker out there. We talk to people all the time. They go out to social media, whether it's Facebook, trying to locate participants that way as well. And then there's also a whole variety of commercial locator services, credit reporting agencies. There's also certified mail is another great way to create an audit trail when trying to deal with these missing participants. A lot of the services that PenChecks offers gives the ability to choose standard first class mail versus certified mail to create those audit trails. Okay. And then also, if you do have those hard to reach participants that have been around for a long time, using phone, email, text, social media as well. A couple other things to think about, we talked about the desk searches, contacting maybe colleagues, registering participants on public or private pension registries. You see there, e.g. the NRURB. I'm going to talk about the NRURB and exactly what that is in a couple of minutes. And then also searching regularly using some or all of the best practices, that we've talked about here over the past couple of minutes. And then finally, really documenting all of these procedures and actions that you're doing. Everybody has investment policy statements, education policy statements, but you should really have some type of statements in place for dealing with these missing participants out there. Have clear and written policies and procedures, document these decisions and the steps taken to implement them. And then finally, ensure that contact service providers are performing the agreed upon services and following these best practices, which is something PenChecks does each and every day as part of our business. So just wanted to talk a couple of minutes about our IRA solutions within the missing participant space. There are a lot of great reasons why plans need to have an automatic rollover missing participant IRA solution in space. And this is really just highlighting some of those reasons. For one, having something like this in place helps lower retirement plan administration costs. So no more per head fee on the record keeping platform. Also eliminating the need to keep track of these former employees. You know, if you can kind of clean up a lot of these small balance plans within the retirement plan, or small balance participants within the retirement plan, there's no need to keep track of those participants, you know, their address, email address, and kind of sending them out those communications. Also helps lower fiduciary risk and responsibility. And then it also, probably one of the most important things, helps protect the participant's tax deferred status. A lot of times when the plans have a cash out provision for balances $1,000 or less, you're just cutting a check to that participant. They are losing the qualified status of that money. By rolling over the money to an IRA, you're assuring that they retain that qualified status of the account. PenChecks offers several different versions of our IRA services, from our express service, where we are really, you know, just setting up the account for the participant. For plans, for participants that we receive from plans where they have balances below $5,000, we do a search for the participant. We send them a welcome kit explaining to them why we have their money, what they need to do to come forward to claim their money. We have more of an enhanced version where PenChecks, not only do we do the front end search, but we send out a 30-day notice to the participants, telling them that per the DOL rules and regs, they have 30 days to come forward to take a distribution of their account, or they're going to be set up with an IRA with PenChecks. And then also, you know, from there, very similar to the express service, if they do not respond, those non-responsive participants will have their account established with PenChecks. And then finally, we have a premier service where we can send out a benefit election package to the participant, giving them an option to come out. We have a great online participant experience where participants can securely log into the PenChecks interface and take a distribution of their account. They can see, you know, what would happen if they were to take a cash lump sum distribution, any tax consequences, any 10% penalties that they might have. We can assist them with rolling it over to another IRA or their new provider, you know, helping them, you know, maintain that qualified status. So we have these three versions available. One of the other things that PenChecks is doing a lot of work around is a voluntary IRA product for those participants that do come forward and say they really don't, you know, have an option to, you know, don't understand their options with rolling it over to another IRA or a new 401k plan. PenChecks now has the ability to work with these participants to set them up in a voluntary IRA solution. But where this could also be, you know, effective is for advisors out there that don't want to deal with those small amounts. We can work with you to set the participants, you know, of a certain threshold, maybe below $100,000, up with a voluntary IRA. PenChecks would continue to manage that service for you, and you know, let you be the advisor of record on that account. Plan terminations. I talked a few minutes ago about how really the only guidance by the DOL up till last year was around plan terminations. The DOL has very specific rules around what needs to be done for a plan termination. PenChecks has a great turnkey solution to manage the entire plan termination process that follows all of the rules outlined in the Field Assistant Bulletin 2014-1. We manage the entire workflow from sending out the benefit election packages, processing the distributions and the rollovers for the participants. We do that, you know, do that a couple of different times, from first class to certified, creating an audit trail. Our technology provides full reporting capability on the back end of it. So from an audit standpoint, you know exactly what every participant chose for their benefit election. And then all the non-responsive participants are set up with an IRA. You know, this is something else that we partner with Definiti a lot on to help manage that process and take the plan through the entire termination process. Finally, the last thing I just wanted to bring up real quickly, I mean, PenChecks does everything. I mean, when I started with the company, you know, really around what PenChecks does as an organization. When I talk about the backbone of everything we do in dealing with missing participants, we're in the business of reuniting people with their money. You know, we get a lot of our competitors out there will talk about, hey, we have so many accounts set up and we do this. You know, at the end of the day, PenChecks has paid out millions of participants of that lost retirement money. And one of the things I just wanted to point out is PenChecks has a proprietary site called the National Registry of Unclaimed Retirement Benefits. And what this is, it's a searchable database that anybody can use. It's free of charge. If you go out and search for lost retirement money, this will be one of the number one, this website will be one of the number one hits that comes up in Google. And you could search for your name within this database. If you do have a match, we'll provide instruction on where you need to go to claim that, you know, lost account. And if it's with PenChecks, you know, they can reach out to us. We will assist them with getting a, you know, a distribution of their account. But the reason I think it's so important to point this out is when I talked earlier about the DOL's best practices in dealing with missing participants, they very specifically spoke about having some sort of a searchable database for participants to go out there and search for their missing money. And they specifically referenced the National Registry of Unclaimed Retirement Benefits. So I think it's a, you know, great plug for PenChecks, just kind of the, you know, some of the things that we do and the way that we work with people to help, you know, do just that, reuniting the participants with that lost money. So I'll just kind of stop there. I know I kind of covered a lot. Tried to, you know, stay within my 20-minute allotment. If there's a couple, you know, any questions out there, would love to talk, you know, take some questions. And
Yes, Steve, we had a question that was submitted, and give me 1 second, pull that question back up. Okay. When participant notices and statements are all being sent electronically, how does that change the scenario?
yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, if they're being sent electronically, I mean, if, you know, unfortunately, if it's an ongoing plan, in most cases, if a participant is no longer with the company and they have a balance above $5,000, there's really not much that can be done. In a plan termination, there can be any threshold where the money can go to an IRA. The plan is going away. But in an ongoing plan, there's really nothing that can be done above that $5,000 threshold. And there's a lot of, you know, push to increase that threshold to a higher amount. But if the participant has a balance less than $5,000, that's a perfect situation where we can work to get them to take a distribution so that those statements and disclosures no longer need to be emailed to them. Get them set up with an IRA where the account is now with PenChecks. We will search for them annually, provide the required annual notices, the 5498, the 945. Hopefully we get those participants to come forward and take a distribution of their account. But that's a great example of how we can, you know, eliminate the need to send out those electronic statements to the participants.
Right. Thank you for that, Steve. So that was the only question we had submitted via chat. Did anyone else have any additional questions they'd like to ask? All right. So thank you for that, Steve. Gave us about 5 minutes to take another breather, get some water and take a bathroom break. Closing out our session for today is going to be Rachel Wecker with T. Rowe Price on improving outcomes and understanding participant behavior. So go ahead, take about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll continue.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Steve.